So these are the important points I remember them discussing at his house. Now, just FYI, I watched this movie once and I'm doing this ad lib right now. So I'm kind of jumping around. But I think that's better than trying to organize this all and type it all up. It wouldn't work that way. Anyway, what happens next? Yeah, so he goes back from this guy's place and he starts, looking into these clues. He ends up at a party somewhere. There's a lot of stuff like that where he's at these parties, these really weird Hollywood type parties. And he meets these girls there. Oh, yeah. Another thing is this guy is that he meets there has this like treasure map. Like the comic book author has this like old cereal box. You know how cereal boxes? I don't know if they still do this. Like kids cereal boxes. There's like little games you could do, and then you'd cut out the game and you'd send it in, and they'd give you like a free something. He has like one of these, and on it it's like a map. And you're supposed to like solve the little or find the characters on the map or something. I don't exactly know. It doesn't really show you. It's just like this cartoon version of a map. And he's like, I believe that this is the key to everything. This is what the comic book author says. And Andrew Garfield is just like, yeah, dude, you're nuts, right? And he leaves the guy's house, and oh yeah, by the way, there's also in the movie there's this you see on the news, and kind of in the background you see this thing about this rich, like really rich dude, maybe a billionaire, that has gone missing, and then it comes out later that, oh, on the news, he's dead. They found him dead in a car crash, in the burnt remains of a car with three prostitutes. And he's dead. That's what they say on the news. Okay, so there's this other thing in the movie where, and this is a thing right from the beginning. This band is introduced kind of right at the beginning, and it's called Jesus and His Three Dracula Brides. Very blasphemous sort of stuff. And just so you know that they're not talking about some Mexican guy named Jesus, they have a white guy that looks kind of androgynous, by the way, like kind of androgynous, with a bunch of crosses around his neck, just so they know which Jesus they're referring to and that they're blaspheming him, right? And Andrew Garfield ends up at one of their shows, ends up meeting some people there that become important later. And then he decides that he needs to get into contact with the lead singer, because Andrew Garfield is starting to figure out, oh, he hears this rumor at one of these parties. He hears this rumor that, his friend's like, oh yeah, I slept with one of the singers, one of the three brides. And she told me that there's secret codes in the music. So Andrew Garfield finds this very interesting, because this is what he's been thinking about since he's like 12 years old. He's like, I need to get in touch with this guy. So he contacts one friend. He's like, I need to talk to the lead singer. I need to talk to Jesus. And he's like, well, this guy throws parties at his house where it's like smart dudes who are into chess and hot chicks. So do you like chess? He's like, no, but he's like, wrong answer. But he's like, whatever, I can play some chess. So they go to this guy's house, this mansion, and there's a bunch of people out on the lawn or in this guy's backyard playing chess at different tables. And anyways, he's like sitting there and he's looking over at the Jesus guy, and he waits for him to get up and leave, and then he follows him into the house, and this guy goes into his bathroom, or the Jesus character goes into his bathroom, and Andrew Garfield bursts in, takes him off the toilet, and again, there's like a really gross shot. Like I covered my eyes because they show what's in the toilet. It's disgusting. Again, one of those things like you should stop watching this movie. We don't want you to see what we're going to tell you. We don't want you to know that. And it's like, well, why would you make this movie then? It's because they feel like they need to tell you. I don't know why they do this, but maybe there's they have to. Maybe there's something within their own belief system where they believe they have to, but they do this. They are telling you what's going on, but they're going to try to filter it out and be like, well, he didn't want to know what was going on because he couldn't see a few disgusting images on the screen. Right? And they're like, well, that's fair. So yeah, there's a really disgusting, they like actually show you what's in the toilet. It's disgusting, right? Like it's stuff that makes you really uncomfortable, really grossed out. I was like, oh, gross. Like what the heck? And anyways, he takes him off, starts punching him, and he's like, tell me what's going on. Tell me about the hidden messages. What's all of this about? And the guy's like, oh, sorry, I forgot a point. And the reason he knows for sure that this is the case is because he actually cracks one of the hidden messages in one of the songs, one of their songs. And the hidden message is like, stand beneath the head of Dean and then, or no, rub Dean's head and stand beneath Newton. And he figures out that he has to go to this place that's up on this hill, and it has like these busts of famous actors, and he rubs James Dean's head, and then he goes and stands beneath Isaac Newton's statue, or he goes and sits beneath Isaac Newton's statue, and then some weird dude ends up coming up the hill after a while, and he's like, I saw you rub James Dean's head. Follow me. And he's like, who are you? And he's like, I'm the king of homeless people. I'm the king of the homeless. And he looks like a homeless guy, and he's wearing a little crown on his head, like this cardboard crown on his head. Just looks ridiculous. His face is filled with dirt, and he has like a cloak on him that's like patched together out of like rags and stuff. And he's like, follow me. Oh, put this on. Follow me. So he has put on a blindfold, and he follows him, and then he takes him to this place there's like a door in the side of this hill, and he goes in. He's like, okay, yeah, just straight on ahead there. He's like, where am I? And the homeless king is like, I can't tell you that. And then closes the door, lets the guy go into the mountain, into the hill or whatever. And so Andrew Garfield goes down this tunnel, and he ends up in this sort of like, he looks at it, and there's like boxes and stuff, and there's like it's kind of like a living area, it looks like, that's in this hill, in this sort of like, that's been dug out. And he's like, this is a bomb shelter. That's what he says. He's like, this is like a bomb shelter or something. And then he ends up, and then after he's in this, and then you're like, well, how's he going to get out? And then you see him, to get out, you see him crawling up this tunnel. And as soon as I saw this, him crawling up this tunnel, I'm like, pyramids. First thought I had, I was like, oh, it's like a pyramid. He's like inside of a pyramid sort of thing. There's something to do with pyramids, because he's crawling, right? Like, and it just, I don't know what it was, but I was like, pyramid. That's a pyramid. It's supposed to be like a pyramid. It's weird. I don't know. It's because it was on an angle, and it just reminded me of like a sort of passageway I would see in a pyramid. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then he comes out and ends up, I think, is it in an airport? He comes out underneath an airport. Or yeah, he comes out, he like opens up a vent to get out, crawls out of the vent, and he's like he's like in the refrigerator sort of section of a convenience store in an airport. I believe that's where it is. But anyways, this is, so he's like, okay, these messages, these codes are real. Like, I just got led with a blindfold on to this frickin' crypt that's underground, this bomb shelter sort of thing that's hidden inside of a hill. And because I followed a message that's hidden in one of these songs. So he goes and he beats this guy up and he's like, tell me about the messages. He's like, I don't know any messages. He's like, it's in this song. Tell me about it. He's like, I didn't write that song. And he's like, what do you mean you didn't write it? And he's like, no, I didn't write that song. The label told me I had to put this song in. It was an important song. And that if I didn't do it, they would drop me from the label. And he's like, oh, well, who did it? He's like, I don't know who wrote the song. They said it was just this anonymous songwriter. Okay, we're going to come back to that. And so Andrew Garfield's like, well, what other songs are they like? And the guy names 3 different songs. He's like, well, those songs were all ones that I didn't write them. They told me I had to do these. And he's like, those are all your hit songs. Okay, important point there. It is true that a lot of hit songs are written by like a handful of people. That's true. A lot of hip hop songs are written by a handful of people. That is definitely true. Okay. So he's kind of hinting to this here. Anyways, so when he says the song, this anonymous songwriter, Andrew Garfield stops beating him and he goes, the songwriter. And then he runs out and finds this girl. Okay, so from before, Andrew Garfield had seen this girl at this sort of social gathering, and he's flipping through this magazine one day, and he sees, this is before in the movie, this is before he beats up this musician. Andrew Garfield's flipping through this magazine, and he sees an ad for an escort service called Star Now or something like that, or I can't remember what it was called, but something to do with stars. And he sees a picture of that girl that he had previously had a brief encounter with, and this girl, the reason he's interested in this girl is because he saw her, he briefly talked to her, and then she left with a friend of hers and this guy, and they got into a limo. And as he's watching them leave, a guy pops his head out of the limo and shuts the limo door, and it's the pirate guy. And so he's like, this pirate guy was there the night that this girl this girl that I've been trying to find this entire time, went missing. Who's this pirate guy? And so he phones the escort service, and that escort shows up, this girl, and he starts talking to her about things, and that's when we learn that, oh yeah, I don't know who that guy was. He was an anonymous. He was anonymous. I don't know who he was. Again, I'm pretty sure this is something to do with Satan, because that's what the one-eye thing means. It's a reference to Satan. The all-seeing eye on the $1 bill, that's satanic. That's referring to the all-seeing eye of Satan. Don't believe me? Read Lord of the Rings. The Eye of Sauron is the Eye of Satan. Okay? That's J.R.R. Tolkien telling you that this all-seeing eye is the Eye of Satan. It's referring to Satan's knowledge about what's going on. By the way, Men with Goats. The Men Who Stare at Goats, is another movie that references this, the all-seeing eye of Satan. But they don't talk about it like that. And interestingly enough, in that movie, it's about remote viewing, which is a real thing that the CIA actually did. They're probably still doing it. But one of the guys, it's showing how his remote viewing is going. And it honestly, if you compare that to it just when they were doing the it's going through him seeing things, and it reminds me of watching the Lord of the Rings and seeing the vision of Sauron's eye looking at something, when seeing something through Sauron's eye. Very strange. But anyways, back to the main point. Yeah, and I like how some people are going to watch this and be like, he's crazy. Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. He's just like, putting these things together and they don't actually fit together. And I'm just like, yeah, it's funny that this director made this movie and they've told us all about this, and the elites are going to take advantage of you. They're going to enslave you. They're going to do all of these things to you. And then they're going to be like, yeah, not only did we tell you, but other people told you, and you called them idiots, you called them morons, you called them crazy conspiracy theorists, so you deserve what we're going to do to you. How can you blame us? We told you. You entered into an agreement with us. And by telling you, we were saying, we're going to do this to you. And when we told you this, you said, whatever. So now we have a right to do this to you. I believe this is one of the reasons why they tell you, is so that it's not like they need to justify this for their own conscience. I believe it's like some sort of like, maybe it might actually be like a satanic law, not built by Satan, but maybe even coming from like God sort of thing, or like it has to do with like this metaphysical law that's out there. I don't quite understand it, but I believe it has something to do with that. I don't think it's because, these crazy elites are like, oh, I just kind of feel guilty if we don't tell them. I'm like, no, we're talking about people who, according to the movie, are murdering children, right? According to the movie, we're talking about these types of people. They don't feel guilty about doing bad stuff to you. That's not the reason they're telling you. They're telling you because they think it gives them a right to do it. Not that it makes them right, but that it gives them a right according to the metaphysical laws of reality. That if they don't tell you, that God might step in and stop them. That's why they're telling you. It isn't because they feel guilty. They don't feel guilty for what they're doing. So anyway, so this guy says, Andrew Garfield beating the musician, finds out about, he's like, what are the tunnels about? Why are there codes in your songs? What are the tunnels about? By the way, when I was like, he's yelling about the tunnels, it just got this weird Q. I remember hearing things about Q, and I was never into the QAnon stuff. I thought it was stupid, but I remember them talking about tunnels. I don't know what that was all about, but I just kind of was like, is there a connection there? What's going on with that? Like, what? But anyways, he does this, and then he mentions songwriter, right? And Andrew Garfield goes, the songwriter. Okay, now back to the part where Andrew Garfield has the escort at his house, and he's asking her about the one-eyed guy, and then the escort's like, sees the photo that Andrew Garfield has been carrying around of the girl he's searching for the entire movie on Andrew Garfield's fridge, and she goes like, oh, I've seen this photo before. And he's like, or not photo, I've seen this girl before. And he's like, what? Where? And she's like, a few years ago, she was at a party I was at. She was in this glass, and he's like, oh, like, did you talk to her? And she's like, I couldn't. She was in this glass box in the middle of this room, probably naked. I don't know if they said that or not. And, there's just a bunch of old creepy dudes standing around her, and this is like a piece of performance art or something like that. Right. So, and again, this movie is like giving you an insight into how weird and how strange the Hollywood scene is and the like elites are. Like, that's a weird thing to have at a social gathering, right? Okay, so then she says, yeah, this, and then she starts telling them about the party, and she's like, yeah, we had been hired to go there because again, escort. And she's like, and took place at in this gated community owned by this guy. And he's like, what? Which guy? And she's like, I don't know. Didn't meet him. He was a songwriter, though. He was like, must have been a famous songwriter. Because it's in a gated community. He owns the entire community of mansions in his community. Like, it's saying this guy is really rich. And she's like, yeah, there's just one thing is there's this one house, big stone house that we weren't allowed to go near. And he's like, oh, okay, that's weird. So when the guy says it was this anonymous songwriter, I don't know who the songwriter was, Andrew Garfield goes, the songwriter. And he recalls this. And it just so happens that earlier at this musician's house, he saw the escort that he had previously hired. So he runs down, finds the escort, and he's like, can you take me to that songwriter's house? She's like, yeah, sure. This is another thing in the movie that is like a theme. I don't know if it means anything, but what you find is that like a lot of the women you meet throughout the movie, they're all escorts, or almost all of them. And they're all kind of like nice. And I thought that was interesting that there was like, not all of them, there's like maybe one of them that's kind of mean, but the rest of them, they're like nice, you know, they're like, oh yeah, oh, okay. And I don't know if the writer was trying to say something about like, women are your allies here. Listen, they'll help you find, they will help you on your journey. Listen to them. They know things. I don't know what he was trying to say with that, or if that's just a coincidence or something. But I did notice that, where it's like, they're all really nice and helpful, actually. In fact, Andrew Garfield couldn't have completed the quest if it wasn't for women being like, oh yeah, okay, well, we'll do that. Well, and I mean, you know, there are guys too, but it's just, it seemed interesting to me that there was that sort of theme going on. Anyways, so they take him to this gated community. He gets in, he goes to the house or whatever, and he walks in to find the songwriter, and the songwriter's in this room in his mansion, and he's playing the piano. This is the scene that my girlfriend showed me. And the guy's like playing pop songs, and he keeps switching between different pop songs. They're like flowing in his chord progressions between different pop songs and stuff like that. And so he walks into the room, sees this guy playing the piano, and he's like, the guy's like, come on in. This is this old guy. And the guy starts telling Andrew Garfield about how he's written basically every major hit. He's like, the music you grew up listening to, I wrote that. The music you rebelled to, I wrote that. And he starts saying, it's a very, that scene, if you can find it, you know, the Silver Lake, Under the Silver Lake songwriter scene, I would recommend you go watch that. You can find it on YouTube. It is very intense. It's like, this isn't the reason, this isn't the like point of the movie. But he's like, yeah, there's these hidden messages. And the songwriter's like, I don't write the messages. I just pass them along. And he's saying that, yeah, all of these pop things that you think are so meaningful to you and all of these songs is like, I wrote them all and they're a joke. He's like, I just recycled this material. And he's like making fun of Andrew Garfield for no reason. He's like, and you know, there's a message in it for other people that are more important than yourself. You know, and it's really interesting. And then Andrew Garfield's like sitting there like, no, this isn't true. Interesting how he's saying that, right? It's like the writer's like, and when we tell you about this, and I don't think like the message for the more powerful people, we're hiding secret codes to communicate with power, like that doesn't really make sense. That's actually not what's going on, I don't think. I think that's a bit of a red herring that's just there to make it kind of interesting. It could be a thing, but I kind of doubt it, that this is the way the elites communicate with each other. I doubt that. No, that's not really I mean, oh, no, maybe that is there, but I don't think that's really the big point here about the movie. So the songwriter's like, for more important people. And Andrew Garfield just cannot believe this because he's like, he really likes Kurt Cobain. He likes all of his pop culture. And this guy's just like destroying it. And he's like, yeah, it's all a joke. It's all meaningless. It's all not about you. This is for other people. This is for people more important than you. Okay, that part is true, right? This is what the writer's saying, which is, this pop culture, we didn't make it for you. We made it for us. We made it to give us power and to take power from you. That's kind of what the writer's saying. And he's like, and you can't even realize that. And when we tell you that, you're like, no, I don't believe it. So if you were some sort of sociopath that was wanting to rule over society and you told them this stuff, you're like, yeah, we are producing pop culture in order to, not for you, but for us, to give us power to manipulate your minds and everything. And people said, I don't believe you. If you're a sociopath, would you just be like, you would kind of be like, yeah, I have a right to do this to the person. I mean, think about that, like on sort of like a naturalistic level. It's kind of like when somebody tells you they're doing something to you and you don't believe them, it kind of does give them a right to do it. That doesn't mean that they're right to do it. It just means that they're now allowed to do it to you. Right? There's kind of like this rule out there where it's like, well, if you're not going to wake the fuck up, sorry for swearing, but if you're not going to wake the fuck up, you're going to have bad shit happen. And it's going to be your fault. Because when you were told about it, you didn't listen. You called people conspiracy theorists for pointing facts out. Pointing facts out. You can point facts out to people and they will call you conspiracy theorists. There's people who think that Jeffrey Epstein maybe didn't kill himself are conspiracy theorists. I mean, yeah, it's they have a theory about a conspiracy, but like they mean it in a derogatory way. Like, maybe Jeffrey Epstein did kill himself. Maybe he didn't, right? But it's questionable at the very least if you take 2 fucking seconds to think about it. You think these people are going to stop what they're doing if you actively help enforce them? And I'm not talking about the people in the media doing this. Sure, they might do it a little bit. They don't even have to do half the stuff. They don't even have to push some of these narratives because you have a segment of the population who refuses to wake up. And they go, well, that's crazy. You're a conspiracy theorist. Oh, I think these are all connected by a little bit of a thread, don't you think? Well, maybe. Maybe Jeffrey Epstein, like, I don't know if he killed himself or not. I don't really have a position on him. It's a little weird that the dude died in prison. That a prison where you're not supposed to be able to kill yourself. And the camera just so happened to malfunction, right? Like, kind of weird, isn't it? If you don't see anything wrong with that, you're a moron. And there's nothing wrong with being a moron, just learn to shut up if you're stupid. Sorry for getting so angry, but this is important.